In today's video, I will be talking about 3 of the 7 communication principles for a learning activity from Module 1, Lesson 2 under our Purposive Communication subject. The 3 principles I've picked are the following. Number 1, Principle of Clarity. Number 2, Principle of Consistency. And lastly is the Principle of Feedback. Not only that these 3 are important to me, but these are also the 3 things I strive to maintain whenever I communicate in a personal conversation or in an audience setting. So here we go. Principle of Clarity. Now, what is Principle of Clarity? It is the idea or message to be communicated should be clearly spelled out. It should be worded in such a way that the receiver understands the same thing which the sender wants to convey. There should be no ambiguity in the message. It should be kept in mind that the words do not speak themselves, but the speaker gives them the meaning. A clear message will evoke the same response from the other party. It is also essential that the receiver is conversant with the language, inherent assumptions, and the mechanics of communication. Here are 7 tips for improving the clarity of your own communication. Number 1, you need to consider your audience. Number 2 is to say exactly what you mean. The third one is to avoid jargon, meaning special words or expressions used by a profession or group that are difficult for others to understand. The next one is to keep it short and simple. Number 5 is ask for a playback. Number 6 is over-communicate, not in a negative way but in a positive way, to make sure that the receiver understands the message. And lastly is to choose the right medium for the message. The second principle that I picked is the principle of consistency. Now, this principle states that communication should always be consistent with the policies, plans, programs, and objectives of the organization and not in conflict with them. If the messages and communications are in conflict with the policies and programs, then there will be confusion in the minds of subordinates and that they may not implement them properly. Such a situation will be detrimental to the interests of the organization. Here are tips of ensuring consistent communication in an internal communication setting. Number 1 is to set the pace. When it comes to communicating effectively, leaders should lead by example and set the pace. The next one is to explain why decisions are made. Number 3 is to create an internal communication strategy. Number 4, choose the right channels, may it be via email or post-it notes or phone calls. And lastly is to establish a feedback loops. Now this will bring us to the third principle that I chose, which is the principle of feedback. The principle of feedback is very important to make the communication effective. There should be a feedback information from the recipient to know whether he has understood the message in the same sense in which the sender has meant it. Feedback in communication enable us to evaluate the effectiveness of our message. It is also essential to know whether the recipient has understood the message in the same terms as intended by the sender. Receivers are not just passive absorbers of message. They receive the message and respond to them. Sometimes a feedback could be a non-verbal smiles, sighs, etc. Sometimes it is oral, as when you react to colleagues' ideas with questions or comments. Feedback can also be written, like replying to an email or etc. Feedback is your audience response. It enables you to evaluate the effectiveness of your message. So those are the 3 things that I chose out of the 7 communication principles, and I hope that you've learned something from it. So thank you guys. Have a good day.